Hey, good people. It's 12 o'clock on the drop. You know what time it is? It's tea o'clock. Come on in. Come on into the tea room. Make yourself comfortable. Let me see who's here. William, are you here? Lauren? Mm. I am sipping on some puka, which is cacao and maca. It's delicious. I'm feeling very earthy and grounded today. We're gonna get started in just a minute. I'm gonna let folks come on into the tea room. I'm so excited, y'all. Great show in store for you. All right, just another second and we will get going. Who's here? Hi, Daniel. Tasty Shop is in the house. All right, so we are bringing you conscious reality, elevating our conversations so we can elevate our lives, right? That's what we're all doing here. All right, so let's dive in. The meditation theme for today is living and creating on your own terms. I definitely would take a cup of that. I'm feeling that. And as I was meditating and journaling, as I do, y'all, this week, I realized that I have to get really clear on defining my terms. Like, what are my terms? What are your terms? Every destination or the journey to a destination has a starting point and an end point. So it's getting really clear on what that mental picture looks like. If we're going from Los Angeles to New York, we have a start and a finish by way of illustration. So I'm thinking to myself, what are some of the things that are important to me? And I want to hear from you. Like, what matters in the context of living and creating on your own terms? What is the number one thing that means the most to you right now? And it may change. It may be different tomorrow or next week or next month. But we are in the last month of the summer, the last half of the year. So now's a good time for that self-auditing, that self-reflection. That's what MediTEAtions is all about, looking within so that we can expand without. So I'm curious, and I want to hear from you what the number one thing is. As I was examining it, kind of having some honest conversations with myself, I was like, Caryn, one thing I struggle with is not allowing the present situation to determine my ultimate destination. So I don't know if anyone else struggles with that, but I can get stuck in the muck and mire of the present reality. And sometimes it looks like, oh, it'll never happen, or I've tried so many times and this door hasn't opened. So I don't know if some of you guys have those conversations, but I think a key to defining and living and creating on your own terms is really mastering this wonderful faculty and tool that we have to think beyond the present moment. And so what that lends itself to is creativity. And creativity uses imagination. And the beauty of imagination, y'all, is it powers our ability to visualize. And here's the thing: everything present, everything seen came from the unseen, right? Even this, the phone you may be on, the computer, it all came from a mental concept that someone conceived, and then it was birthed into physical reality. So I love this definition. Let me pull this up for you guys of imagination. Imagination is the ability to form a mental image of something that is not perceived through the five senses. It is the ability of the mind to build mental scenes, objects, or events that do not exist, are not present, or have not happened in the past, or have happened in the past, actually, which is powerful. I mean, I think that's, for me, that's the key, to really harness that ability to think beyond what's present in the moment. And one way to do that, and I want to talk to our special guest because I think she has, just in my personal conversations with NUMA, some really wonderful insight on how to apply that on a practical level. Because all this stuff is cool, but if we can't really use it in our life to expand our lives, then what's the point, right? So I'm going to check in with y'all. Hi, Nathan. I see you. Audrey said inner peace. That's what's up. I feel you. Inner peace. That's kind of what's priority for me right now, too. So just sticking back on task where we were, I want to bring one other point to mind for us to consider before I bring on my special guest. And that is, how do you harness your personal genius? Because living life on your own terms for me is about harnessing that. And as I was contemplating it, personal genius is about your personal POV. And we think of it in terms of Einstein and the Steve Jobs of the world and the universal application, which is real and true, but that there's a very personal application that applies and that is unique to you. It's your unique configuration. It's your thoughts, your perspective, your experiences, your damaged goods. It's taking wounds and turning them into wisdom. The Buddhists have a perspective that says turning poison into medicine. So it's really looking at the poison that then becomes your medicine. And for me, that's what personal genius is about. So I want to ask you guys about that. Let me know. And how do you look at that? How do you find that? Well, like anything, I think you have to acknowledge it exists. So I'm inviting all of us right now to look at one aspect of our lives, of our personality, of our gifts that we bring forth, and name it a personal genius. Because I think we miss a lot because we don't take the time to actually say, you know what, that is pretty cool. I am good at that, or I do excel at that, or I do feel good when I'm doing that. So that's important. Again, our theme, living and creating on your own terms. And my special guest, who I'm about to bring up, NUMA, represents for me authenticity. I think of being eccentric and dancing to the rhythm of her own beingness, the beat of her own drum. And that to me is owning your space. That to me is living life on your own terms. So I'm going to share a little bit about her before I bring her on. Now, Shadow and Act described NUMA as an artist, a producer, a director, writer, mother, sister, and community builder. I will add to that a visionary and a creative tour de force. She is an incredible actress, writer. She is the co-founder of Black&Sexy TV, one of the first digital media networks to offer scripted content for Black American audiences. NUMA starred in and wrote for the network's breakout series called The Couple, which was optioned by HBO. And she's responsible for creating, developing, writing several other series, including the popular Room 11 Friends, which I had the great fortune of being on a few seasons. BT has optioned the rights to that. You all may remember Hello Cupid, Becoming Nia, Sexless, Chef Julian. These are all the Black&Sexy hits that NUMA had a hand in the creation and development and execution of. She also has directed several experimental short films, and they're compelling to say the least. So I invite you all to go to thehouseofnuma.com and watch some of her earlier work. What is really exciting is NUMA made her feature film directorial debut with Jezebel. The film is semi-autobiographical, and we'll talk about that as she comes on, and draws on NUMA's personal life experiences. Jezebel follows a 19-year-old, Tiffany, played by Tiffany Tennille, who's brilliant in the movie, as she navigates her dying mother's financial struggles. By working as an internet fetish cam girl in the 90s, the young woman uses her fantasy world as an escape from her real life experiences. And I think what's so beautiful about this film, at the core of it, it really is a story about sisterhood and survival. NUMA also plays a supporting role in the film. Jezebel made its world premiere at South by Southwest in 2019. Hollywood Reporter loved it, said it's the best of South by Southwest 2019. It's one of their picks. And it was acquired by Ava DuVernay's company, Array Releasing, for a limited theatrical release, and it had its debut on Netflix in January. So there's a lot going on with Miss NUMA. Now, here's a fun fact about her that I thought was just adorable. Being the visionary and entrepreneur that she is, her first small business was writing customized poems for her classmates in third grade. So she charged a nickel a line, and they would order sweet poems about flowers for their moms and things as such. And speaking of flowers, the essence of all things beautiful, I want to introduce to you Miss NUMA PERRIER. Hi, NUMA.
Hi.
How are you?
That just made me smile so much, that entire intro.
Good. It should. You give a lot to the world, so you deserve to receive a lot. So I'm so excited to have you here. I have ignored our comments, so let me see who's here. Akiba says Jezebel is a great film. Absolutely.
Thank you.
Absolutely, yeah. Your body of work is really compelling and inspiring. Kalila Joy says, "Woo, Black and Sexy, baby." Kalila. Carla is talking about owning your space. So let's dive right in, Numa. Personal genius. What does that mean to you, and how do you harness it?
Oh, big question.
I know, right? oh, I'm sorry. Time out. What are you drinking? What are you sipping?
I am drinking coffee tea.
Coffee tea, right? I'm not mad at it. Whatever gets it going. You know what? This actually looks like a coffee, but it's like I said, it's a maca, chocolatey, rich, and it's appropriate.
Chai latte.
I felt it would be great for our conversation. So let me not interrupt you anymore. Go ahead. So what does it mean and feel for you to access and harness your personal genius?
Gosh, I mean, besides the word genius, which is, a word that I think it's better if other people assign you that. But part of the piece of that stands out for me is personal. So when I think about that, I think about just remembering who you are and what is unique about yourself, your personality, things that you may have been teased for when you were younger or felt insecure about when you were younger. I think those are the things that add up to what people assign the idea of genius to, is because it's something that stands out to them and something that they're looking to push forward in themselves or discover in themselves. And then that's how we kind of get to the idea of this person's a genius. A lot of it has to do with, just stepping forward and fully being who you are and fully being expressive of that and fully exploring everywhere that can go. So that's
I can certainly appreciate that. So take us through some of your journey in fully being who you are. Now, obviously, we're all a work in progress, and living life on your own terms doesn't mean you have challenges, y'all. I mean, we all are struggling in a certain way and growing and evolving. But I'd love to know how that process moved for you. It's starting when a point feels appropriate for you. I don't know if it's the point when you were 19, if it was before then. You grew up in a very interesting, fascinating way on a farm. So just, share with us a little bit about that journey for you.
Yeah, I definitely think that for me, it goes back to my childhood. I really feel like I did lead a very unorthodox childhood. I was adopted at a young age. There were a total of 8 siblings in the family. We did live on a farm for 3 or 4 years, and we did travel. We did move cities a lot. We didn't, except for the farm, we didn't stay anywhere for more than 1.5 years, maybe 2 years. So I went to maybe 8 different schools on both coasts. So Washington, Oregon, but also in the South Carolina, Georgia. Just really bounced around a lot. Had a lot of animals that we took everywhere with us. And I just it was somewhat normal for me. I knew that it wasn't the norm, because I knew it wasn't normal to always, start a new school in the middle of the school year. There was just always a lot of disruption, and I always felt like a disruptor. Every new school that I went to, I was always, the new girl, always very different. That's really where it all started, at a sense of artistry, trying to figure that out, wanting to be expressive, wanting to be understood, wanting to build my own sense of play and space for myself to enjoy my life. I think that it all really goes back to that. And everything that I am now, I feel connects to those experiences.
Absolutely. And I've been sitting with this idea of moving from being externally validated to having.
Is it the Chainsaw Massacre behind you?
I know, right? Like, I'm sorry, y'all.
Girl.
I know, I'm sorry. Last week, a Wi-Fi was going on last show. And I was like, dude, like, really? That's what y'all are going to do right now? I'm so sorry, y'all. They're not normally here.
I hear power drills. I'm like, what is
going on? I promise it's not. I don't know what our neighbors have going on. Don't they know it's tea time? Y'all, come on.
Yeah, that's the time we live in, though, right? We have to
Right,
roll with
exactly.
whatever's happening.
Right. It's a good metaphor for life, just kind of rolling with it. So speaking of challenges, and moments where you were challenged, Numa, what are some of the things that you have done and do to move yourself, to use your imagination to imagine something better than what you might be experiencing?
Well, again, I feel like it goes back to my childhood. Always felt as a kid, I always knew what I wanted. I knew that I wanted to be an actor, make movies, and come to LA. I knew that from a very young age. And I was always plotting and counting down the days. I remember I had a diary where I had counted down the days until my 18th birthday, because then I will be free from this household and I'll be able to leave and go to LA and go do what I want to do. And I didn't come right at 18, but I found my way here. And the day that I moved to LA was the first day I had ever even visited the city. So
wow,
it's always had that sense of purpose and drive to get here and start my life and create the life that I wanted. So a lot of challenges came up along the way, but I think it was me looking at that larger target, even though it felt like it was so far in the distance, I could always see it and I was always moving in that direction.
So tell me more about that. You could always see it. What does that look like for you?
Well, it was more that I could always feel it. I could always feel myself moving, getting closer and the excitement of going and just knowing that there was going to be this whole world there for me to explore and create my own life. And that's why a lot of times when people ask me where I'm from, I don't have one place that I can say, I'm a Haitian woman. This is where I was born. I was raised in all of these places, but Los Angeles is really my home. This is where I created my home and my sense of self and my sense of artistry, and everything really blossomed here. Those challenges I feel like I had a lot of challenges as a kid, but I always just looked at that end goal, and then that goal, kind of similar, but adding on the tools of understanding my emotional landscape and understanding just in a deeper way, understanding the circumstances that created me to be the way that I am, and knowing that I can accept that or I can change if I want to. Those are things that I learned as an adult. You start reading more and you start to mature in that way. But again, definitely goes back to childhood. I definitely felt those challenges. I was often very frustrated with my reality, but I knew that it wasn't going to be forever. And I was just very self-determined.
And that goes back to, again, not allowing the present situation to determine your ultimate destination. And it doesn't mean doing like a bypass, ignoring the reality of the present moment. You have to deal with it and respond accordingly. But I think there's power and agency in using our imagination to build and construct the vision that we see for ourselves. And that feels like that's what has pulled you this whole time and what fuels you. I'm interested in our audience, some of the things that you do to move yourself, if you are finding that you're challenged by something. And it doesn't have to be all bad. I mean, you could be in a beautiful place. There's many beautiful things to celebrate. So, and I think even in the challenge, there is an opportunity, again, to turn poison into medicine and to use that. And what's beautiful about your work, Numa, is that so much of your art and artistry is infused with the things that you saw and experienced as a child. And I'm interested in other ways that you may express yourself and what our audience is thinking. I'm not sure what that means. How long do you have, Fran? So go ahead.
She's talking about the Chainsaw Massacre.
Oh, right. I see. Thank you. Can you guys chill out for a second? We're trying to, have some meditations over here. If you have questions for Numa or myself, please go ahead and drop it in the comments. Again, Akiva said, great film. I pulled that one already.
Thank you.
So let's talk a little bit about your wonderful film. Why now? Like, what happened for you? You said now is the time for my voice to be heard.
I actually started hearing a voice in my own head telling me to make the damn movie.
Oh, wow.
And again, it was more of a feeling than actually hearing the word, but the urge came to me, that it just almost feels like, I always say my guardian angels, it feels like they were kind of push me and usher me forward, like, you need to make this film, the time is now. And I see so clearly now that the time that I made my film was the exact time I was supposed to make my film. Wow. Because if you think about when it was released and how I did an entire year of touring with the film last year, and the film in January on Netflix. And so I had a short press tour for that. And then pandemic hit.
Right.
Just weeks later. If my film had come out any later, it would have been a completely different rollout of the film. So everything happened on the time that it was supposed to happen. So I really started feeling that urge. I knew that the Jezebel story was a story that I wanted to tell one day. I always thought about it. When I moved to LA, I always thought in the back of my mind, this could make a good movie one day, but I didn't have any idea of even how that would come together. I didn't really know how films came together then. I was just a young chickadee, in LA, getting my first agent, auditioning. And I was writing a lot and producing, and I made my first short film. But it's so strange. I didn't really connect that to me making a feature film. But I had these pages that I wrote. I wrote about 15 pages of the script for Jezebel, mostly just to get out my feelings. And I wasn't writing it saying, oh, I'm going to go shoot this soon. I was writing it because I wanted to get it out of me. And I felt like I might lose some of the memory of it if I didn't write it down. So I wrote about 15 pages and I didn't touch it again. I showed it to a couple people who were not very encouraging. And
Interesting. So expound on that a little. Because a lot of times we're met with resistance and things.
Yeah, I let a couple of people read it. And I think everyone should be careful about that, because when I did, I was told that there wasn't really anything there, that they didn't feel anything, and they, just didn't think that the story really amounted to anything. And granted, it was only the first 15 pages, which is, the first 15 pages you see in the film, but that was felt so off to me. But at the same time, I put more confidence in their words than my own feelings about it, which was always that this would make an interesting film. This is the story that I want to tell. And so I put it back away. I didn't throw it away, but I definitely, it wasn't encouraging me to really move forward.
Move forward, right.
Yeah, and I feel like in my earliest work, even the earliest short films that I did, I would get really interesting responses like that. Like there were, and even with Jezebel too, but now I handle it and feel differently about it. But it would always kind of be this mixed response of, wow, this really landed on me in a very impactful way. I want to know more, versus, why are you telling something about your own life? That's not good enough. That's not, that doesn't count. I remember one time someone said, oh, after watching one of my short films based on some of my true life, they said, oh, your next film will be from here. Like if I don't imagine the story, because I'm working for a place of memory and I'm unpacking pieces of my life, that somehow that discredited my value and my talent as a writer. And And, you know, early on, it was really a lot of that. Also, because I've always worked in a very non-linear way. The approach to my work is very Haitian, actually. You know, it's not steeped in it's a different type of storytelling, and I think that's just in my blood. So those things would have an effect on me. Partially, I'd be pissed, but partially it would also kind of make me, you know, go and be a little bit worried about what does this mean for what I'm trying to do? Like, what am I, you know, like, what's wrong?
There's a couple of, I'm sorry.
No, that's fine. But yeah, those were the type of kind of creative challenges that I was dealing with.
As I'm hearing you, there's a couple of things that come to mind for me, and it's going back to internal orientation versus external validation. Now, obviously, you know, we all want acceptance and approval, and we need that as human beings. That's part of our makeup. But it's finding that right balance, because in essence, you were kind of shut down a little. And I've had that experience where I share part of myself or my work or my artistry, and it's not received, and then you put it in a drawer. And I think if memory serves me, I remember reading that you had your script in a drawer for a while. Yes. So metaphorically speaking, all of us, there may be something that's in the drawer right now that's it's ready to come out and birth itself. So it's really putting it in its right context and not needing that approval from other people to harness your own point of view, which again, to me, speaks to your personal genius. And I can appreciate what you said in terms of genius being a term bestowed upon you. But I'm challenging just in my personal meditations, in my walk right now, this idea of everything having to come externally. Like, I am going to acknowledge and call forth and speak out my own genius. And what is wonderful about you is that you let that vision pull you so that your point of view and perspective could be heard. And here's the thing, y'all, like, what I'm getting is that it's not ever just about us. You know what I'm saying? Your story was your story, but look how many lives are transformed and moved and expanded because you shared it. So I think that's important to note.
I really understand that now, that the whole thing is about expansion. You know, the whole thing is about how you make the space grow when you enter it, you know, and how you bring, you bring something new to the table. You bring something new, because what you've done hasn't been done before. And the more personal that is, the more true that is.
Exactly. That's that to me.
I learned that on the way, because even with that, you know, I may have put the script of Jezebel in the drawer, but I kept creating. I didn't let that totally shut me down. There were different aspects of me that did feel kind of shut down, and then did start questioning myself. And I think that that's, you know, something that can happen as you're, you know, building your confidence on the way. And the creative space is so subjective. It took me a while to really be able to stand by my work. And it was when I started doing more, when I really started producing and directing and really taking control of the entire vision of a project. At that point, I said, I stand by my work no matter what, no matter how anyone feels about it, no matter how it lands on them. I'm so satisfied with it, and I'm so happy with it, and I can let that stand, and I can receive any bad comment that comes my way, you know, because I'm like, well, that's okay. You know, I still stand by the work, or, you know, a piece of it might even ring true for me. Like, yes, I made this choice because of that, you know, internally, I'll say that, you know, or I've just really grown, and I've changed, and I've become so solid in that. But I think that that's part of the process when you're first, you know, like, it's your first script, and
and whether it's a script or your business, it's your baby.
You're like, I just learned final draft, and script, you know,
and it's like, oh, here's what I'm getting though, that it's an and thing. Like, you can be afraid or not sure and still create. you cannot have all the answers and you can still move forward. And I'm also getting the power of divine timing, because although it sat in the drawer, there were other pieces of the puzzle that had to come together for the film to unfold at exactly the time that it did. And that's the thing that I have to remind myself, and I have conversations with my husband about this, like your dream, your gift isn't just about you. There are other people behind the scenes who are part of that process, and they've got to be teed up and lined up. You know what I'm saying? So it's an overall trust in the abundance of the universe, of God, what works for you in terms of the language, that you're supported and that you're necessary, that you're needed, and that even though it may not feel or look like it, all things are working together for your good. Yeah. And I see that's a lot to take on when stuff ain't going right. I get that.
Right. But you do just really have to keep going and keep creating however you can, because each thing does build on the next. And then you'll be able to, as your body of work grows, you'll be able to look back and say, oh, because exactly what you're just saying, I relate that so much to Black&Sexy TV, really. You know, I was playing different roles for every series that we had.
Wow. Right.
Was not all about me. It was about every person that came through and had a role that they blossomed from, or, you know, fan base from. That was important in all of the trajectories lining together, you know? And I didn't understand that at the beginning when we first started the platform, but as we kept going and you see how one thing led to another, even in inside of the storylines and in real life, you know, you know, it's like, oh, this is a world, you know, and this is a world of creators that have come together that do different things, that act, write, produce, direct, all of these things.
And it was such a fun time, Numa.
Each one built. So it was such a edit. I'm like, oh, okay. You know, and that makes things more exciting, because now everything that I'm doing, I'm like, ooh, you know, what is that going to look like when I look back on it and I see how those pieces, how me working with this person led to that. And it's become a more of a fun game for me now than anything else.
I can so appreciate. One tool I use is I call an eagle eye, and I take a above perspective of my life, meaning like you can look back and appreciate what Black&Sexy and all the pieces and parts that came together. So sometimes if we take a perspective, we're almost like we're looking down on our life, we can see all the little pieces coming together and ease more into the trust and the flow that you are being led, you are being supported, even if you can't see the whole picture right now. I think that's so critical to living life on your own terms, to harnessing your personal genius, and to bringing forth the gifts that only you can bring forth. You know what I'm saying?
So you can really relax and have a good time, enjoy yourself. I feel like I'm enjoying myself more than I ever have before. Because I'm just like, oh, you know, I know that everything is leading me to the next great thing, you know? So every new person that I meet, every new project that gets proposed or that I think of in the shower one day, I'm like, oh, is this, you know, it's more of a curiosity, like, oh, where is that going to land? How is that going to inform the next thing? So it's a good place. It's a very good feeling place.
That's good.
Yeah.
That's good. And we all benefit because of it, because of you're living in your authenticity and your truth. Again, if you guys have any questions for Numa or myself, go ahead and pop them in. So I want to speak about something you and I talked about, Numa, just going back to, you know, kind of Black&Sexy and the beginning of that whole thing. There were a lot of challenges, and there's an article that talks about where you guys were, you know, at the courthouse, potentially facing eviction, and made the choice to funnel your money to support your dream, and ultimately it paid off. And what struck me about that is you said, or perhaps it is said, that had you not made that decision, then the HBO deal wouldn't have come and the other things that came after it. So it was a real risk and a gamble, but you were led by something. Tell us a little bit about that.
It was another one of those feelings, in the very, very early days of let's start, filming things uh, to supplement the film. A good day to be Black and Sexy. Let's just film things to keep promoting that film so that people will, continue to surround this film and buy it on DVD and all those things. 2009.
Mm-hmm.
That feeling and that urging came that no, it's not just about supplementing for this film. We can do something more. We can create our own shows. We can put them on YouTube. We can have a network. Like it just one thing just kept firing off the other, and that big vision was always there. That we have this network that is Black and
sexy, right? Which is totally new at the time. Yeah.
We can try things that we will be pounding on doors forever to try to get, someone else to understand that, yes, this audience is so rich and so ready, and it can go to all these really great places. So no matter, again, what challenges came up, I always saw that, So if we didn't have the money, I'm like, that is a temporary issue.
Yeah.
Okay. We really didn't have the money. And it was really frustrating, especially I was, a very new mom that just, our daughter was an infant still.
I remember when you were pregnant when we were shooting.
Girl, breastfeeding, my milk was coming out on my costume. It was a lot. It was crazy because we were spending our rent money to buy lunch, rent lenses, rent a camera, and sometimes I was like, y'all just don't know,
Right, I know. That's up to actors. You show up on set.
Because yes, I'm an actor, and I'm like, I'm on your side as an actor. But I learned so much as an executive. I would get so frustrated and be like, you guys don't understand really
what's going on. I know.
I can't, come to set and say we were at the eviction court this morning. I really need you all to be on time and like be on it for this, please,
Wow. Wow.
Yeah, we're doing it for us, but we're doing it for all of us, And so there was a day that we were at the eviction court, and I said, well, even if we're using our rent money, your dog is protecting you.
Right, from the chainsaw massacre. Dude.
So we were using our rent money to, rent equipment, and we had a pretty cool landlord that would let us slide a little bit, but it got too much, and they were like, you guys need to pay up, and it happened, and it escalated, and we were at the courthouse, and we had a shoot scheduled for that night. So that morning we're at the courthouse, and I remember saying, even if we lose today and we have to move, we don't have to move tonight. So we're still
going to set. Right. Wow. That's
like, I'm a badass producer because I said it doesn't matter even if we lose this case, we will be filming tonight. And so we were able to settle the case, and we had to pay the money that same day. We had to go put the money in a bank account. And I remember having to go deposit that money while cast and crew was arriving. It was just a lot.
Wow, that is wow.
Yeah, wow. And then we filmed, and I think that was the couple that night that we were filming. We actually had a camera too.
Wow.
But it's just like the love of what we were building, and the love of the show, and kind of, the excitement of the pressure that, hey, I definitely come from the school of the show must go on.
Yes.
And, there's just never been a time when the show didn't go on for me. So
no, I get it.
It's going to go on, and so, yeah, that's a principle that I'm attached to. But yeah, so that was obviously a major challenge, and and I said, we can't let that happen again. We can't risk, you know, where we live for what we're building, but that means we just have to adjust how we're doing it, you know.
Right.
You know, so there was a lot of learning in that as well, but we kept going, and it's a story that I can tell because it is remarkable.
And you're past it.
Yeah, and we're past it, but it was emotional, it was stressful, and it was, you know, some, you know, superhero stuff. And definitely I feel like, again, our guardian angels ushering in, knowing that there was a bigger picture, that this series was going to lead to the next, to the next, to the next, and impact so many careers and impact our community in such a way. So yeah, that was just like another, you know, for me, I'm not saying it wasn't stressful, but it was just like another, you know, I feel like I've been through shit like that. And that we could handle it, and that we could get good.
Hey, TL Legacy. The eviction part is fun and great for the spirit of the shoot that day. Ain't it crazy? Yes, I totally get it.
Between Dennis and I think we were both just like, we weathered
right that. I know, but you didn't give up, you didn't give in, you didn't let the present moment stop you. You harnessed your personal genius, because I'm doing that in for my meditation folks, for all of us.
Adrenaline too. I think the adrenaline. That's
so funny, because Doc Camille just said, I feel the adrenaline.
Like I'm feeling it now. Like I remember, you know, you can't have a baby in court, so we had to have our kid. There was just so much day. I should make that day. That day in the life was so crazy, because we had to take our kid. We had to like rent a car. We didn't have a car at the time, so we had to rent one of those. We had to like rent a car, get our kid to daycare, this like crazy daycare that she was going to. It was just you're taking me back, honey. It was a lot. But we did what we had to do.
That's inspiring for me, and I'm sure for a lot of people, because it didn't feel good while you were experiencing it, but as all things, it came to pass. It didn't come to stay. It came to pass. And look where you are now. Alexia said, hey, my prosperity partner. She said, now that's how you bet on yourself, for sure.
Big bet. Yeah. And that I love that you said that, Alexia, because that is one of my things. Always bet on yourself. Always bet on yourself. And you know, that's just the show must go on, and always bet on yourself. Bet on yourself.
I think two key ingredients in living life on your own terms. The show must go on, and bet on yourself. Craig Ross Jr. Hey, that guy sounds great. What type of obstacles do you both face today? Good question.
We're in a pandemic, so we're in the biggest obstacle.
Right. Yeah, that's true.
I've never seen. Never seen before. Just managing.
Managing that with kids. I think the biggest internal obstacle, is that what you mean, Mr. Ross? Would be trusting my voice. That's something that I'm still cultivating. Like, can I say that? Can I write that script? Can I talk about those things? Those are some things that I still struggle with. But it's as I do it more, like you were talking about, Numa, the more confident I get and the more I own my shit. And I'm like, okay, I may not be your cup of tea, but that's okay. You know what I mean? And those that are riding with me will, and those who don't won't. So I guess that would be some of the obstacles I face today. What about you, Craig, and anyone else on the tea room?
A lot of patience right now, because we don't know when certain productions are going to move forward. We you know, the landscape is really slippery right now. Everyone feels uncertain, but yet we're still taking meetings and working, and like when this is over. And I think that a lot of patience and kind of what you're saying too, Caryn, and trust bubbles up, you know, the feeling of, you know, are we really going to be okay? Is our industry really going, you know, is our industry really going to survive?
I know.
You know, since we're all running out of things to watch.
Right, right, exactly.
What does the future of our work really look like? And we're all looking to, well, one day it's just going to be back to the way it was, but we don't really know. So it's,
Yeah.
you know, for me, internally, it's that feeling of being patient, having faith, and, you know, and trusting that whatever it is on the other side, that we'll still be able to create and do what we do in some way.
Yeah, somehow it's literally in our DNA. Hi, William. Thank you for being here. I love that. Always better yourself. Absolutely. Audrey Harris is saying, "Wow, this is an amazing conversation. Thank you for being so transparent. This is incredibly inspiring. Reminds me of the power of my own story." Yes, absolutely. And I'm hoping that that is a takeaway that we're all getting, is the power of our own story, which for me represents, I guess, personal genius, which goes to, that's how you live life on your own terms, is by naming it and claiming it. You know, the story, all of it, just owning it. Kalila's here too. Patience and faith has been a huge obstacle for me. Totally relate, Numa. Yeah. So yeah. Numa, what would you say for those that aren't taking meetings right now, that don't have access, that they're still in the process of maybe in the eviction phase or trying to build their dream, whether that dream is in our industry or another industry? What would you say to a person who's struggling with that?
Gosh, the only thing that we can really do right now is write. So if you do write, and even if you don't, just try to even just write your feelings about what's going on. That will stimulate other creativity. I'm talking, you know, to people that work creatively. Even if you don't consider yourself a writer, I don't do it anymore, but I should pick it back up. You know, that was the thing I loved most from that book, The Artist's Way, the morning pages. You keep a notebook by your bed, and or your desk if you sleep on your desk, and you keep a notebook by your bed, and upon waking up, you just stream of consciousness, 3 pages. You just write. Even if you're like, even if you're writing, I don't know what I'm writing, I can't write. You just keep writing the 3 pages, and that does something to you. It stimulates your imagination. It stimulates your creativity. It allows you to kind of vent out what you dreamt the night before, what you're feeling upon waking up. I think that's now I'm telling myself to do it. I think that during this time, if you don't have meetings, you don't have, you know, things that are filling up your schedule in that way, just gently with yourself, just try to write, and just hold on to those writings until we get to the other side.
What's interesting is
there's a lot of power in writing, and I want to really impart that to people, that even if you don't feel like you're talented in that area, it really doesn't matter. Writing is power. When you write something, that you own that thing. It's a thing you own. Until you write it, you don't own. There's nothing there. You don't own it.
Never thought of that.
You know, and that's why they say, like, you can't copyright an idea because it's not a thing yet. You know, so write, because writing is your power. Writing will stimulate other things in you, and writing is something you can do during a pandemic.
Right, exactly.
So
you're reminding me to Vanessa and I had this conversation. My best girlfriends and I, Audrey and Cleta, we're doing the morning pages, and Jessica, who's a wonderful therapist and has a lot of great wisdom, asked, how do you deal with the major challenges on a regular basis? Are there practices? I think this is one of them. And I just want to add to that you reminded me, Numa, that I was doing the morning pages upon graduating from Howard University, and I was going down a path that really didn't fulfill me. And that actually brings up something that I want to talk about with you guys, which is success versus fulfillment, because there are a lot of successful people, but they're not fulfilled people. So I was going after the outer trappings of what I thought would lead me to success. And it was during the morning pages process, and I didn't know this, I was actually telling myself the direction I wanted to go in. So instead of showing up in New York City on Monday morning to work on Madison Avenue, I showed up on my mama's doorstep in Los Angeles and stayed in my bedroom for about a decade, going on auditions, doing the hustle, wondering, what am I doing? Was I crazy for doing it? But I was following my heart's path, and ultimately it's leading me to the fulfillment and success. And that's how I define success, that inner peace, that sense of contribution. And it's not perfect. I mean, trust me, I could have some things be a little different, but I'm appreciative of the space I landed. But it was the morning pages that actually communicated that to me. So I totally co-sign everything that you're saying about the power of that right now during this pandemic, y'all. Woo, yes.
Yes.
Some tea drop right there. Right. Right. Let's skip to that. Any other tools that you use? I meditate. Is there anything that you do to answer Jessica's question, which was a great question? Any other tools specifically that you use to move through challenges on a daily basis?
I definitely do the meditations. I need that, because I can get caught up in a downward spiral emotionally. And so I use that to clear my mind and just
breathe.
Let go. Yeah, just breathe and let go of anxiety. I think anxiety is something I've been dealing with a lot throughout this whole thing. It's increased, and just the sense of worry and concern and uncertainty. So meditation for sure. I always talk about my hot showers.
Yeah, you get a lot of ideas in your showers.
Shower in the middle of the day just to reboot and restart my day. Yeah, that's another thing that I do. Or if I have a decision that I need to make, I won't make it until I get in the shower, and I'll just let the hot water come down. And there's something about that water is a conduit, and so I just let that rain down on me, and ideas and answers and things come to me there. So and I have to shower anyhow. So
it's I do that too.
That I can forget about doing for, I can, fall off the wagon of that easily. I'm not going to fall off the wagon of taking a shower. So I put that in there. I don't give myself too many major tasks to do. And maybe that's a piece of self-care, but I just don't want to overwhelm myself in any way. There's already too much happening, but specifically meditation, hot shower, writing. I will start the morning pages again. I haven't been doing those, but I have been doing a lot of writing aside from that. So yeah, those are
really,
that's my way.
When it starts to get really icky for me, I know that's a pain point, and my body and my life is sending me a message to slow down and listen. Because if you really listen to what the struggle is trying to tell you, it's giving you the answer. The seed contains the blossoming of the flower. So if you're sick, you're really wanting health. If you don't have money, you're really wanting, abundance and prosperity. So if the opposite is showing up in my life, then I know it's pointing me in what I really want. And then it's going back to the beginning of this conversation. Okay, we're getting really clear on that. I like you said, Ashley's soul mission. One of my good, dearest girlfriends, mommy friends, Christiane King, talks about keeping your goals in mind, working towards them, but remember to live in and appreciate the present and simple moments in these stressful yet transformative times. Today you are fine. Today you're alive. Today you are hopefully healthy and grateful for just that. That's been helping. That's so powerful.
That was sermon. That was a prayer.
Right. Yeah, absolutely. That was yes.
Writing. I'm big on writing down when I start to feel icky too. Writing down all the things I appreciate and why. Even if it's down to, I love the window in this window that I love in my bedroom. Like, I love this window in my bedroom. I love this. I'll do that. The sense of soothing and focusing on that. And I don't know why I don't talk about this more, but I do therapy. I mean, I'm in therapy.
I love it.
More and more people are reaching out to find, the right therapist for them, someone to talk to and help you sort through all of those things, who is not your friend, who is not a person with, any type of agenda or knowing in that way, a professional who's been trained, to help you sort through those things. And so I do that. And I think that that's tremendously helpful. Even when I feel like all I did was just talk about nothing this week, it still does something for me. And it's still building on each one. So
I really appreciate you
there's
saying that.
more and more affordable therapy, especially now too. So that's another thing I think is important to highlight.
Absolutely. And I actually have in my stories a list of Black therapists, online therapists, both here in the US and abroad. So if anyone's looking for that support, I appreciate you saying that. My last show with Carl Seaton, fabulous director, and Audrey Harris, we talked a lot about, hey Carl, hey Audrey. He also talked about going to therapy and doing therapy. My husband and I believe in that also. It really helps you unpack what's underneath there. And so it's removing the stigma associated with that I think is important. And when people like you and all of us on here speak up and out, it gives us permission for that healing. You can't heal what you don't hear, you know what I mean? So, hi, Janora. Gratitude is there, but yes, Savage my James, Nora. It is. Gratitude is an elixir. It's hard to be in negative space when you're finding just the simple things like Christiane was talking about, that today I'm okay. And I've had to do that. Like today I'm okay. Today I'm eating. Times, throughout the years when maybe money was tight, or just going back to, and I've said this before, someone laughed at me, we take for granted that we can even use the bathroom with ease and grace. You know what I mean? Like there's people who cannot do that. You know what I mean? So it's going back to that level, like your body is functioning. You're okay. So, hey, Lauren, I see you, Bill. I was wondering where you were. Thank you. Sometimes when I write, I get extremely discouraged because it doesn't seem to come together. Great advice.
And that's really okay if it's not coming together. At least for, what I'm talking about, to just get that out, and just hold on to it, stack those pages, keep those notebooks, and just write.
Now, Daniel had a question. I didn't realize time flew by, y'all. I'm hoping that, and thank you, Nichelle. Nichelle said this was a great and candid conversation. That's what we aim for. Thank you, Numa, for bringing so much to it. Jezebel, the definition is untamed woman. I think I read that, which was metaphor. The metaphor to me is really living outside of the confines and restrictions that society puts on us and that we put on ourselves. And I love that you found the courage to tell your story. And I like for all of us, as we gather our time and get ready to leave here, to find a way to pull the story out of the drawer and tell it, because that to me is living and creating life on your own terms. So if we could, Numa, talk about how long it took you to craft your story. Anything else that you want to share with us that's meaningful to you as it relates to Jezebel that came through you in such a powerful way?
Yes, it's interesting that I always get the question of how long did it take, and I don't know if that's because people are like, how long is it going to take me to finish mine? But to give some context around that, I'm actually a pretty quick writer. When I sit down to write, I can bust out a lot of pages. It's just the getting to the sitting down part. All the gap in between, all the turmoil to get yourself to actually just sit down and do it. It takes up all the time. And so often when you hear people say, oh, it took me 10 years, I always want to know, but can you try to quantify how much of that was the writing part and how much of that was the anxiety part?
Right.
So for Jezebel, I wrote that first 15 pages in one day, in one sitting. Maybe it took me a couple hours. And then I put it away. When I came back to it, it took me 2 weeks to get it to 70 pages. Then I had and I felt like I needed feedback at that point because I knew that wasn't, I needed more, but I just needed feedback at that point. So by then I had a trusted circle of people to send the script to get feedback. I wasn't just kind of like, here, give it to, I had developed that. So they were great. They came back with notes right away. And I wrote the next 20 pages off of their notes over that weekend. So the actual time of writing the script, which is a 90-page script, was less than 3 weeks. But the first 15 pages from the time I came back to it, there was an 8-year gap between that time. Wow. So during that 8 years, I did everything that you may know about, from Black&Sexy TV. I did all of those shows, all of my short films during that time, and then circled back to the Jezebel script. So
thank you for that question, Daniel. Shout out to my co-producer who's helping me produce my MediTEAtions. But I want to take that question in the direction that Nathan is suggesting. Well, thank you, Nathan. I appreciate MediTEAtion is deep today. It's all about reflection, so I appreciate that. My question in tandem with that, Numa, is not so much how long did it take you to write the script, but who did you become in writing the script? That's what I'd like to understand from you. I
think it definitely brings it full circle, because talking about stepping into your personal genius, when I first wrote the script, again, I was just kind of writing it for myself. So I had left all the names the same. When I returned to write it, and now I'm thinking about really making it, I had changed the names. And I was not telling people that it was my personal story. It was a lot of my friend, or I have this idea. I was very dodgy, I was dodging it because I just didn't, it just felt too vulnerable for me. And I didn't want anyone to judge me or have to go into any details that I didn't want to go into. So as I was workshopping the project, it became so hard for me to talk about it in an honest way, because I was saying them and the other names that I had said. And it was so frustrating that I finally said, you know what? I'm just going to tell you all, this is my story. It's me. I'm Jezebel.
Wow.
And it was such a powerful moment. I'll never forget it, because it was all women in the room. I was workshopping it at Tribeca Film Institute with a team of really incredible producers and writers that work in the industry. And everyone in the room, I mean, you could hear a pin drop. It was like complete, the air was sucked out of the room. And the woman leading the workshop said, you have to, that changes everything. You have to say that, Numa. You have to say that this is your story, because we were interested and we were intrigued, but now we're invested. We want more. And that changed the way I wrote after that. So I had that first 15 pages. They encouraged me to let my guard down. I also wanted to let my guard down, but I was like, no, but from the moment I did, my writing became stronger. I could start putting in all the specific details that would make it obvious that I know what the fuck I'm talking about, because those are all the things that make the film sing the way that it does. But that is the personal piece of the genius, is, and not everyone has to do that in that way. Like, I don't always mean it when I talk about being personal with your work. I don't always mean it to say, take exactly what happened to you and make a movie of it. Though I think a lot of times that might be incredible, but it's about taking your personal feelings and not being afraid to really express them in whatever you've imagined or whatever work that you're doing. Like, you can't have this guard up. You have to really open yourself up for your work to have an impact. And everyone's work who's had an impact on me has done that, whether that's something and that, you know, they imagined, or something they're afraid to say is theirs, but they've done that, or they've actually said, this is based on something that happened to me or that I experienced. And that changed everything for me. And I was doing it at Black&Sexy TV. There were things that were based on, you know, my life and things I had been through. Right. But not to that level, you know, not to the level of, you know, the story of Jezebel. Yeah, and so that changed everything. That was the corner that was turned.
That's powerful, and it took a lot of courage for you to step into your authenticity. What I'm taking away from that is just that, being authentic, because we're really at the intersection of, you know, Black female sexuality and exploitation and agency over our bodies, and there's just a lot to unpack there, and it's so personal to you, and you revealed and opened up this space for us, and that's the beauty of, I think, telling our story, our stories, because, you know, I think I live my life in terms of symbolisms and metaphors. There's a Jezebel in all of us that is wanting to come forth, and through your story, through your authenticity, you're giving us permission to do that. So
yeah, it feels really good. I'm really proud of it, and I'm really happy that the women around me, it was a complete opposite ushering than it was when I, you know, had sent the script to men, honestly.
Interesting. That's a whole nother MediTEAtions.
I love that definition of Jezebel as the untamed woman, because I think that is probably like the best way to describe the way I approach life, is in a way. So yeah, I just, you know, that will mean different things for different women, but that's what it was. I think it was, you know, the women, you know, responding to the Jezebel in them. Yes, you gotta do this, Numa. Like you can't go in here saying, oh, I'm a filmmaker who thought of this idea. Like, you have absolutely earned the right to tell this story, and it will be so much richer if you step all the way into it. So
so much richer if you step all the way into it. That, my good folks, is what living and creating on your own terms means. Like that's it. I love that. I want to leave us with something you talked about, and that is staying silent at times to cultivate the dream. Like a seed doesn't announce to the soil that it's about to come forth.
I'm like, that.
No, it's gonna come full circle. Okay. You talked about, I'm gonna bring it home for you. I'm gonna see this together. When you talked about sharing and how sometimes you were met with criticism and people who didn't understand the vision, and even one of your Instagram posts, people told you not to direct, people told you not to act, people told you to get a bigger name. So whatever that is for us in your personal life, there is an element of staying silent to cultivate the dream, to allow the seed to germinate, to use the water, to use the darkness representing the challenges, use the sun so that it can come forth in its right time, and it will. And in the process of meditation, I believe you'll have discernment and know when it's time to speak, because a closed mouth doesn't get fed, and when it's time just to retreat and to be in the stillness, growth of it, and to cultivate your story and bring it forth in its right time. That, to me, is living life on your own time.
That's real. Yeah, I definitely respond to that.
Thank you. I'm glad that resonates. So wonderful, people. Numa, we could have you forever. This has been so wonderful. My girl, Dr. Camille, says so much richer if you step all the way into the story. Tea drop, yes, for sure. Nathan, staying silent towards the dream. Yeah, you have to protect it at all costs, y'all. You know what I'm saying? We get this one precious life, at least this one. Maybe there's more, I don't know. But this has never happened before. You have never happened before. I've never happened before. So let's tell our stories in the way that only we can.
Yeah, you have never happened before, and you won't happen again.
Right, exactly. That's what I'm saying. Right. I'm letting my Jezebel out. So
let it out. Everybody on set. Everybody was Jezebel on set. You know that too. It's like everyone's Jezebel.
Yeah, basically. Thank you, D Ferg. So I appreciate you, wonderful people. I appreciate you. Go ahead and follow Miss Numa. Let me get rid of this. Hold on, so that we can hold on. We can see her handles. I can't find it in this time. I can't get rid of this thing, but she is at Miss Numa, and you can go to houseofnuma.com and see all of her delicious work. I love your short film. I have to do a whole nother one on Judy. I mean, that took me out, Numa.
That was fun.
Yeah, that was, you're such a gift. So I appreciate you and what you bring in to the world. I appreciate all of you guys. Thank you for bringing. Any last words, Numa? Did you want to say?
Thank you so much for having me. Yeah, this has been great.
Awesome. Thank you too. Bye, guys. I'll see you next time.
Bye.
Sure to share it, like it, and I'll see you next time in the tea room. Bye, everyone. Bye.